80 miles or thereabouts. Certainly no more than 100 miles, depending on what route you take. Less than 100 miles is as far away as it was. A little further than from here to, say, Hagerstown. Not quite as far as it is from here to, say, Bethany Beach. 80-ish miles is the difference, the distance between Bethlehem and Nazareth. Bethlehem down here, Nazareth up here. 80 miles. It's not that far, is it? On the other hand, anyone who has spent Friday working hard at their job in and around Baltimore and then found themselves on Saturday sitting in their beach chair, listening to the surf, trying to keep the seagulls away from the boardwalk fries, all while reading a good book. Anyone who's had these 2 days in sequence knows that 80 miles or so can make a big difference. There's a lot about Jesus that we just don't know, that we can't know. All those things that happened during the missing years of Jesus' life. But one thing we can know about Jesus with a high degree of certainty is that he came from the tiny little town of Nazareth. It was a small town in northern Galilee, which is a fancy way of saying that it was basically a wide spot in the road. Throughout the Gospels in the New Testament, whenever Jesus is mentioned, he is called Jesus of Nazareth. And back in the day, the "of" part of your name was important. It referred always to where someone was from, was raised. Back in the day, I would not be Rick of Catonsville, Maryland. I would be Rick of Clinton, Maryland, because Clinton was my town of origin. So one thing we can be pretty sure about is that Jesus was of Nazareth. That was where he was raised, and it might have even been where he was born. Nazareth, a little wide spot in the road. Nazareth, a town that was up in the back country. Nazareth, a town that you didn't ever really pass through. You had to be going there to get there. Nazareth might be the little town that sprung up around the head of a coal mine in West Virginia, about 80-ish miles from the big city of Pittsburgh. Jesus was from up Nazareth way, a man of humble origins, which is great. Lots of people, lots of important people come from humble origins. Jimmy Carter was born in Plains, Georgia, about 85 miles away from the big city of Macon. Still lives there, still goes to church there, still teaches Sunday school there. Jesus came from a humble, small town no one really knew much about, which was great, except that once Jesus became a rabbi, a prophet, once Jesus was baptized, once he became a healer, a crucified Savior, and then especially once he became the promised Messiah, it was not going to do for Jesus to come from Nazareth, little old Nazareth. As people began making the case for Jesus as the Messiah, they had to deal with this thorny little issue of where Jesus was born. Nazareth wasn't going to cut it anymore because all the writings of the prophets, the scripture has Jesus coming from somewhere else. Said that the Messiah had to be from Bethlehem, not Nazareth. Bethlehem was the city of David, and the Messiah was supposed to be from the city of David. And so to be a convincing Messiah for those who came after Jesus, people needed him to be Jesus of Bethlehem, not Jesus of Nazareth. So, as time went on through that years of that first century, the years after Jesus' death and resurrection, stories, wonderful stories began to emerge about just how Jesus was born in Bethlehem and then moved to Nazareth where he was raised. Stories that could be factually true, sure could have happened the way those wonderful infancy narratives tell us. But these stories were designed primarily to ease the dilemma people were facing, that Jesus was called Jesus of Nazareth, and that Jesus really needed to have some Bethlehem in his origins. Among those stories was the story about a census in Bethlehem, a census that called people to return back to their city of origin. The census would have obligated Joseph to return to Bethlehem. That's the story we have in the Gospel of Luke. Then in the story that's in the Gospel of Matthew, begins to be told and passed along during that first century about Magi, who came to Jerusalem and told King Herod about a new king who was to be born in Bethlehem. So they followed the star to Bethlehem. In Luke, there are shepherds, inns, and mangers in Bethlehem. In Matthew, there are Magi, gifts, and a really mean king in and around Bethlehem. Both of these stories offered up to square up who Jesus was supposed to be and who he really became known as. Jesus of Bethlehem, Jesus of Nazareth. I'm so glad that we have these Bethlehem stories, these infancy narratives with all the wonder and mystery and poetry and mystique. Beautiful stories. I'm so glad we have the stories of Jesus of Bethlehem. But isn't it also a good thing that Jesus can be from a little old town like Nazareth, up the road a piece? A one-horse town, nothing really, up in the hills of Galilee. I'm glad we have the wonderful, magical baby lying in a manger, tiny but larger than life. But isn't it also a good thing that Jesus can be old Joe and Mary's boy? A small-town kid who got into it every now and then with his cousin, but who wound up doing some astonishing things. Bethlehem, Jesus as he was supposed to be. Nazareth, Jesus as he was. This Christmas season, I've thought about these two towns on either end of an 80-mile stretch of road, Bethlehem and Nazareth. It occurs to me that Christmases can be divided into two kinds of Christmases. There are Bethlehem Christmases, and then there are Nazareth Christmases. A Bethlehem Christmas is Christmas how it's supposed to be, how we imagine it, how we dream it, how we plan it. A Nazareth Christmas is how it really happens. In Bethlehem, the Christmas pageant is pulled off without a hitch. The children are perfect. In Nazareth, the children playing Mary and Joseph get into a fight over the baby Jesus and tear up those swaddling clothes. In Bethlehem, the Christmas concert is a thing of beauty. In Nazareth, it's also a thing of beauty that ends with a fire alarm going off. In Bethlehem, every kiss really does begin with K. In Nazareth, the ring is too small and won't fit on her finger. In Bethlehem, Santa brings the perfect gift that he's always wanted but didn't dare dream to ask for. In Nazareth, Santa gets whatever was available once the gifts were all picked through and went on sale. Each year, we make our bold plans to have a Bethlehem Christmas, because that's what we do. But usually it's more the case that Christmas comes to us a little more like Nazareth. This year, our family was among the many families who enjoyed Christmas that was more Nazareth than Bethlehem. Having one special person in our family missing from around the Christmas dinner table is hard under any circumstances, but especially hard when the loss was so fresh and new. This year, we were all happy about Christmas, but we were shooting more for Nazareth than for Bethlehem. This year we knew Christmas wasn't going to be perfect. We just wanted it to give us a chance to be together. And that it did. This year we gathered like so many others do all the time in a house on the outskirts of Nazareth. It wasn't what any of us would have wanted, but I'm confident that this year our Nazareth Christmas will do at least two things for us. First, our Christmas in Nazareth will remind us that joy and laughter and being silly and singing songs and watching children, all of that is still possible even when things aren't perfect. aren't the way we wish they were. And I think the second thing our Nazareth Christmas will do for us is what it will do for all of you whenever you have one like it. It's experiencing a Christmas in Nazareth framed in the reality of a sorrow that we wish weren't there will help us keep our eyes and our hearts peeled for those who are there in Nazareth with us. And then we get to become Jesus as he really was for people who really need him. The hymn we're about to sing speaks of one of those Nazareth Christmases.